Hola. That just came to me.
Hi, this is Jen Grant, and you're
Hi,
listening.
this is Graham K.
Hi,
And you were listening
this is Adam Fox, and you're listening
This
to
is
the...
Dylan Mandelson, and you're listening to the...
This is Brian Hatt, and you are listening to the Julian.
Hi, this is the word man of Alcatraz.
Señores, signori.
Hey, everybody, this is Little Darren Frost.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Mi nombre es Fabio Mantoan y están escuchando a Julián Dion.
This is Dave Sidhu, and you're listening to the Julian Dion Comedy Codcast.
Podcast hour. Showcase.
You are listening to the Julian Dion Comedy Hour podcast.
Hola.
Tell me nothing I don't need to know. Don't take me nowhere I don't need to go. I got a head like a radio. It's such a beautiful waste of time. A waste of time. A beautiful waste of time. A waste of time.
Yes, here we are. Episode number 11 of the Julian Dion Comedy Hour podcast coming at you. Shit, yeah, we're in the double digits now. This is real. Episode 11, did I say that? Yeah, episode 11. Coming at you far from Lemon Press Studios, from the west coast of Canada, Victoria, BC. Specifically, I'm sitting in a hotel room right now, talking to you. And it's good to be in the West Coast, hence why this Friday, October 24th episode is coming out a little later. First reason being the time zone. Second reason being I had a little bit of a technical issue, or more of a practical issue, I guess. I'll get into that in just a sec, but here I am on the West Coast. And it wouldn't be the Julian Dion Comedy Hour podcast monologue if I wasn't completely exhausted yet again. I'm so tired. I do this thing every time I travel where I get an early flight, super early, and regret it 100% of the time. So when I'm booking my flight, I'll book it super early. Think I want a full day where I'm going, the West Coast. It's great because when I'm in Toronto, you leave and it's like you go back in time. You show up around the same time that you left Toronto. So I always book freakishly early flights and always regret it and always tell myself, okay, never again. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. It's too early. I'm a comedian, so I usually have later nights. Wednesday night, by the way, thanks for everyone who came out to the Julian Dion Comedy Hour live show at Say What. That was great. A lot of fun. And so I had that show on Wednesday night. And so that was late. Even if I don't drink or anything after, or I go home right after the show, by the time I get out of there, it's late. And my flight was at 7 a.m., so I had to get up at 4:30 and so on about 3 hours sleep. And so I always regret it, and I always tell myself, don't do it. Don't ever book an early flight. And I forget. It's like I get travel amnesia. It's like I'm two people. One person booking and another person that's actually traveling, and I hate the person that books the travel every time. I loathe that person. So I book it, and I promise myself never again. And then I get travel amnesia. A few months go by, and then time for another stint to the West Coast. I booked my flight a couple days ago. And I thought, you get excited when you book it. Even though I promised myself every time, never again. 4 or 5 days ago, I log on, book my flight. And it's the same. It was the same price. That's the ridiculous part. So there's like a 6:50 flight, an 8:30 flight, a 9:50, 10:30, 11 a.m. flight. all the same price. Yeah, I'll go for the $650. Let's do it. Get a full day in Vancouver when I land. Forgetting, of course, that when I land, I'll be on 3 hours sleep. I'll be in the worst mood ever. Won't be able to socialize or do anything. Will want to nap all day. So you don't really get that extra day of travel. So that happened again. Woke up on 3 hours sleep, beyond exhausted. Dragged my ass to the airport. I actually got a real nice travel case for all my podcast gear. I brought my board and my mixers or my board and mixer. That's the same thing, actually. I brought my board and my mics. And so I carried that on the plane with me. I get to Vancouver, or I get on the plane, and I had an emergency exit seat, which they really drive home the reality of crashing when you're sitting in an aisle seat. They approach you before people are still sitting down. They approach you. Hi, does everyone here understand English? Okay, just to let you all know. You understand English? Yep. Okay, this is important. Just to let you all know. And they usually say in the unlikely event of this flight attendant did not say unlikely. She made it very much a reality that we could go down in flames. And if we do, the safety of all the other people aboard this fuselage of fear and danger rests on my shoulders. So she's like, so you realize you're sitting in an emergency aisle. So if we go down, you will need to, this is how you open the doors. And you want to look out the window for fire or debris. And so I'm like, oh shit, this is real. So look out for any fire or debris. If we're in the ocean, just make sure it's safe to open the door before you do. This is all great. This is all positive. Wasn't thinking about it. All I wanted was the extra legroom. Now I'm thinking of fire and debris and ocean outside my window. So you're not really listening. You're just thinking, oh shit, man, if this could happen. This is a real thing that might very well happen. And so if anything does happen, everyone on the plane is fucked because I'm not listening. I don't actually know what to do. I still don't know. I sat there. I was bestowed with that responsibility. Still don't know what I should have done or should do. I wonder if history, in the history of, like, how many times someone has actually, at that point, been alive to open the emergency doors. Like, if you plummet 3,000 feet, are you in any shape to be like, oh, okay, everybody follow me. We're all okay? There's no fire, debris. There's a little ocean, but no fire and debris, so let's do this. Follow me. Still don't know what to do. It's kind of like my CPR course. I was CPR trained. First aid training for non-Canadian. I think CPR is a Canadian thing. Anyway, first aid trained. And it was a full day class that I took a while back. It was like 8 hours. And then you're first aid certified. So if you're in any public area and anything happens, you're the go-to. You get a little card that you put and you carry on yourself. You put it in your wallet. But the woman teaching the class really phoned it in. Didn't really care much about anything. She just told us about stories. She kept saying, she was like, yeah, my kids are retarded, her words. And she just kept telling us stories of like first aid, like how they fell in the pool and how they knocked, like she raised 3 boys. So she just told us basically stories, regaled us with tales of their mischief for 8 hours. And then at the end for the exam, she's like, all right, let's just do this open book. Let's just spitball the answers. Just tell me what you think they are, and I'll tell you the real answers. So we went through the exam, open book, open discussion. Lo and behold, 3 weeks later, I get a card in the mail. I'm first aid certified, and I tell you right now, if you're in public around me and you go down, and I'm the only first aid person trained, you're fucked. Because I still don't know what to do, which is a little bit like the emergency exit aisle thing. I don't know what to do. If someone goes unconscious and drops like a sack of potatoes next to me in a restaurant, let's say, I'll be like, shake him, do something. I don't flip him around. I move him. Make sure you move him on their stomach. I don't know what to do to this day. I think there's some holes, some gaps in our safety and security, but because we're just training people on the fly, and the people training aren't really qualified. I mean, she may have been qualified for all I know, but she really didn't train me. So I am first aid certified, but not really. I'm not. Like, I would not know what to do. Show up first person at the scene of something where something happened and you're on the ground. Sit on him. Sit on his chest and beat his chest in. I don't know what to do. All I want was the extra leg room. And that didn't make sense. So I'm on the plane. I'm next to this person. This guy, he's got a neck pillow. An inflatable neck pillow, which sounds fine, but those things, if you have one, throw it in the garbage right now. So we sit on the plane, and this guy inflates his inflatable neck pillow. Just like... He's inflating this thing, and then uses it. Then at the end of the flight, pops the thing, and then he unloads his neck pillow directly in my direction, in my face. So he's unloading basically a U-shaped baggie of stale travel breath. Gross travel breath in my face. That was great. Thanks for that, sir, in seat 18D, Air Canada Flight 1153, with service from Toronto to Vancouver. Thank you for that. So I get to Vancouver, of course, in the worst mood possible. Here I am enjoying my, quote, full day in Vancouver. Just a vile piece of a human walking around. And I get to my sister's place and then try to nap, can't nap, end up having to babysit my niece, who is, by the way, great. That's like therapeutic. If you're in a bad mood, hang out with a 2-year-old for about 3 hours. That sounded very Canadian, about 3 hours. It was great. So I brought all my gear. I made sure I bought a great case for it. I brought everything. It was a big hassle. Lug that thing, this mobile recording studio across the country. Set up last night for an interview. Really tired. But I had one interview last night. Set everything up. And realized I didn't have my fucking power cord for my mixer. Had everything else. No power cord. And for a specific model, you can't just go out and buy just a power cord. It's like the AC cord for, like, that's what you plug it in. It's for a specific model. It's 11 at night, and I've got nothing. And I'm like, oh shit. All these interviews lined up. I had to do an episode for today, for Friday, and nothing. So then I start brainstorming and think this is another thing when you're like in distress and you realize the extent of the issue and you know that you have to get it specific. I think people start throwing you ideas, but they really don't help. Like, what if you call someone? Who? What if you call the neighbors, ask if they have an extension cord? That's not what I don't need an extension cord. My sister was like, well, first thing she says to me, I'm like, I'm so upset because I don't have a power cord. I have everything else. My mics, my mic cords, my headset amp, headsets, everything. My mixer, my brand new case that I paid to travel with, that I bought. No power cord. So I'm like, my sister, as soon as she sees that I'm upset, well, maybe next time you should have a list of all the things that you need. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll do that. Thank you, sister. She knew it was horrible advice. As she's telling me, she's like, okay, this is probably not the best time to say this, but how about next time if you had A list. Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much. Should I print it? Should I laminate it? What should I do with this list? I need more details because clearly I don't know how to operate on my own. So I ended up coming to Victoria this morning, going to Long and McQuaid here, and kudos to Mike at Long and McQuaid in Victoria. Great guy. I called him, and I actually bought another mixer. First thing I ask is, what's the return policy? He's like, 30 days, original packaging, no questions, no problem. Can I return it any location? Absolutely. So I bought another full mixer, opened the box just to grab the power adapter, plugged it into my own, and here we are, sitting in my hotel room. It's 4:34 Pacific time, and you can hear me. Thanks to Mike at Long and McQuaid in Victoria. And by the way, I will be returning my mixer in Vancouver. Thanks to the policies at Long and McQuaid. So thank you for that. Okay, let's get to my guest today. Normally now I would cue up the interview and tell you little couple teasers and what we talked about and how it went and that it was fun. Well, I would do that, but I don't know how it's going to go because we're just about to do it. He's standing outside my hotel room, so I'm going to let him in. Let's do this. My guest today, you'll enjoy our talk. I'm sure of it. I can predict the future a little bit. I have an intuition. I should just give up on words. Okay, you're going to enjoy it. He's a great guy, funny comic. Enjoy my chat with Sean Proudlove.
You and me belong, just like the flowers, laughing all day long. People, I need you loose. Sing a little song, then take a shower. Julie and Dion, comedy
I'm not big on the death myself, but I did learn something from it. Very expensive to die. Totally cost a lot, but if you get cremated, really cheap, right? So I told my mom, all right, if I die for whatever reason, you cremate me. But at my funeral, I want my ashes to be in a giant bowl there, right? Each one of my friends going to grab a handful of my ashes and just throw them in the eyes of someone I fucking hate. Then we're gone to Subway and you get the foot long and you can't eat it all in one sitting, right? So you like put it in the fridge till later, you're done that. Yeah, you guys know. What the hell happens to it, right? I don't know much about fridges, but I'm pretty sure I put a dry sub in the fridge there, right? It was protected with a bag and a napkin on it. It should be alright. No. Go to get it an hour later, it's the soggiest fucking thing in the world. Unbelievably soggy, too. If you haven't experienced, let me tell you what just grabbing the bun feels like. It is like giving a leper an Indian arm burn. That's what it's like, is it not? Yes, it is. What is that bun made out of? What's the absorption power of that bun? 30, 40 times out of a tampon? I don't know. It's right up there. So ladies, if you're in a pinch.
All right, that of course was my guest today. He sits in front of me in my hotel room. It's very intimate. This is a very nice setting. It's soft.
Sit or
lighting.
lie. I think we're lying, aren't we?
Yeah. He's lying. We're lying, but it's not weird because his head's at my feet and vice versa. Yeah. It's like a dressed 69. Anyway, my friend is here. He's a veteran of the game. He's been doing stand-up for about the better part of 17 years, I believe. He's toured coast to coast. He has a special on the Comedy Network, Comedy Now, that's been out for a few years. He's done the Blue Bridge Comedy Fest. I think that's here on the island, right?
I only do fest within a mile of my house. Yes.
He's done the Blue Bridge Comedy Festival, the Halifax Comedy Festival on CBC. Do you have any of those clips up?
No, I've actually never been.
You've never been?
No, I haven't even been coast to coast. It was coast to middle of the country. I was supposed to go.
Because I looked it up. It said you've been to the Halifax Comedy Festival.
No.
On some show that you did, it said.
Yeah, they always throw that in.
Oh.
It's become like a standard credit for
because
anyone.
You're far enough from there.
Yeah, nobody's going to check on the Halifax.
Right.
The website's not good enough.
So Comedy Now for sure, Blue Bridge for sure, Halifax, we'll leave that up to you.
Yeah.
And most recently, he's taped a gala at the 2013 Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal.
Yeah, technically it wasn't a gala either. It was like their mini gala, whatever they called them.
All right.
And they're not airing it. So
Seriously?
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm all for them not airing it. I saw it, and it was just awful, in my opinion. I mean, other people would probably like it.
I'm
but
sure it was good.
I
but
looked good.
Right.
That's all I do in comedy, as long as I look physically good on the tape, so that when I age like a bad piece of fruit, I can go back to me like, remember when I looked so good?
Okay, so far all I've gotten right is that he's been doing
Yeah.
comedy for 17 years.
If you were searching for my daughter, I'd be worried that you would never find her.
I'm not like Liam Neeson.
Yes.
I don't have a particular set of skills.
Ah.
Sean Proudlove sits in front of me. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. I'm
good.
glad you're in town and
It's
good
good
old
to see
Victoria.
you. Yeah, man, we see each other about every.
Every time you get to this club. Yeah.
So, and before Vancouver when you were there.
Yes.
So you're a bit of an anomaly.
I'm both.
Anomaly.
I'm the word that doesn't actually exist, and that.
I struggle with words on this thing
Don't
because you're based out of Victoria, and
Mhm.
yet you still do like well with thing like you did a taping for Just for Laughs. Like how do you do that?
Yeah,
from
it's weird.
Based out of here and still pursue good opportunities.
I moved to a place where people laughed that where comedy goes to die, that type, because there wasn't really a lot in Victoria.
Right.
And as it turns out, I got invited to Just for Laughs while I was in a town where I performed 75% less than I normally do. So,
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's a lesson there. I just don't know what it is. Less comedy, people.
Maybe we'll find out in the next little bit. So, but you're from here, right? Originally?
Yeah, I grew up here,
Mhm.
and then I had to move to Vancouver because there was only one room here it was here for like 20 years. It was at the Tally Ho, which I don't know if you've ever been. It's like a giant gazebo, and then there's another gazebo inside that gazebo. But there's so many things to do in there other than watch comedy, and it was some of the worst shows ever. I mean, and they did it for 20 years.
At the Tally Ho.
At the Tally Ho, and it died within 2 weeks of hecklers coming to town.
Oh, is that right?
Which was fine, as it
Yeah.
should have. But I mean, I did some of the worst shows there ever. I mean, you were the 12th best thing to look at when you were on stage.
Right,
there. It was
right.
that type of room. A lot of ball teams, just horrible. But it still existed for 20 years. So
Is it still around?
the place exists. They just cleaned it up, so it's actually quite nice.
Is it still the inception of gazebos? A gazebo
Yeah, it's
is a
exactly.
gazebo?
It's a newer gazebo and a gazebo, but I mean they've got like new TVs now. I mean before it was even like they had terrible TVs, and they had horse racing. You could watch that. They had pool tables. They had pinball. They had darts, Keno, and these were all spread around the thing. So you could do all of these things and still watch a guy die doing comedy on. It's not even a stage. Sometimes you were on a staircase.
Right.
I did a show there once where a guy went on before me when I first started, and he was breaking a board, karate chopping a board for every mile that he's traveled to raise money for injured children, something like that, right? So for 45 minutes before a show, a guy was smashing boards. Nobody was watching. It was just like a woodsman over there just smashing wood flying, sawdust on the ground, and then they're like, please welcome Sean Proudlove. And, that went well.
Is that where you did your first ever set?
No. In fact, I wanted to do comedy, and I even had the instinct back then that this is not the place to do your first time doing comedy.
Right.
It'd be like having, sex, your first time having sex in like a dumpster. It would be that equivalent for what it was, but... I did go watch a lot of shows there, so I mean, I got a feel for people, and I mean, if you talk to every comic brought up the Tally Ho that was been around for a long time, they would tell you a bad story of that place, but it still existed. It was a regular gig, but just horrible.
So let's go back then. 97 you started.
Yeah, 90. I think it was 98 actually. I was talking to Damon about this, and I think it was 98. July 1st, 98 was my first show, or July 2nd. So.
And where was that?
That was at Yuck Yucks. And
Okay.
their amateur night back then consisted of 15 people in a 200-seat room, and it was not anything like it is now, where I go see amateurs that are performing for 200 people.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a horrible Wednesday night in Vancouver, and where they're I can't remember what it's called now, by the casino, and it wasn't a good venue for comedy because it was attached to a bar, but their amateur night for a long time was just, it was awful. I mean, it was always, 15, 20 people. Hard to get on. They only had 5 spots. But that's where I started. So it was interesting because I told people back home, because I went down there, I didn't know how to get on. I said, and I said, I pulled the trigger. I went down there. I said, I want to do it. And they're like, oh, you can't. You can get on next week. But then I told everyone that I was going down, so I had to play that through. So I told everyone, I'm like, I did all right.
Oh, and you hadn't actually
hadn't done it because I knew I was going to do it the next week.
Right.
And then I did better than I'd actually bragged, so I felt I
should have bragged more.
So I didn't tell many people that. So, but it did force me into doing it. It was one of those things.
Right.
That, but I'd made my mind up, and I went down there, and actually it wasn't that bad. I still have the set list. I could probably still tell you half the jokes.
Yeah. Tell me one.
My first joke was I said people complain it rains too much in Vancouver, but if it wasn't for the rain, it wouldn't wash away that smell of urine and vomit in Gastown, which is, I believe, the first joke I told. So I don't think I even told it right. So but that was generally it, a rain joke in Vancouver. So
yeah.
But the set went fine for the 16 people, and then off to the races there. So.
And what was the scene back then like? Like who was coming up in Vancouver?
Yeah, it was interesting because there wasn't a tremendous scene, but it was like just on the cusp of building because there used to be Punchlines in Vancouver, and that's where I went down the first time to do comedy, and it didn't exist. It had closed that summer or previous, and then so there was Laugh Lines. That didn't really have an amateur night. You could maybe get a guest spot there.
That's still
in existence, and it was it was probably at its glory days back then. I mean, it was run fairly well by Mark Dennison, and they got good acts. I mean, they were still getting your Irwin Barkers, your Brent Butts, and Daryl Lennoxes. They were just regularly headlining there. But it wasn't an amateur night, so there wasn't any shows there. So there was like. The Niagara just started up, and the Urban Weld started up like 3 months before, but it only put pros on at that point. So it had not found its ground. So when I first started, there wasn't very few things. But I did a show at the Niagara the week after Yucks. That's where I got to saw. I met a young John Bueller who was, just like 19 years old. And, there was Damon and Dave Nystrom and Patrick Maliha and Kevin Fox. But none of these guys were headlining. They were all, middle acts at that point. So, I mean, that was the first time I got to see a large group of people do comedy in a bad room.
Right.
And I loved it. It was just interesting to see. I mean, it was a bad room by, today's standards, but it was interesting to watch.
And how many times were you getting up?
When I first started, nothing. I mean, because there was no rooms, right? I mean, Yucks was a gamble. You would have to call on like a Tuesday at 12 o'clock exactly, and the first 5 calls would get through. And there was no guarantee you'd even get on. If 2 headliners showed up, they would just bump the amateurs. So I think I got on from July to December 23 times. And even that year after, I think I only did like 70 shows. And I had a roommate that was doing comedy, Josh Stubbs at the time, and he would play anywhere, musicians, anything. And he probably doubled the shows that I did, but he played everything.
Right, like music, open mics.
Yeah, anything. Or just rooms that would survive one night and never come back. But there wasn't a lot of things that first year. But then it started to take off with the Well becoming more amateur friendly, where they brought in people, and then that became the hub.
Let's talk about that a little bit. The Urban Well was that was a super special room in the way that it was, in my knowledge, the only satellite room that has ever supported 2 shows in one night.
Yeah, it's weird. On a Tuesday, too.
On a Tuesday. Yeah. So talk about that, because you eventually took that room over, right? From
yeah,
Brent.
For sure. When Brent went on to...
So Brent Butt started it.
Brent and Jamie started it. I think it was Jay Brown's room originally, and he gave it to Brent and Jamie, and they did a Tuesday night. And I mean, it was like the same 10 comics, 11 comics headliners that would come in, and they would bring in a couple people, but the town just, I didn't think, really knew each other super well. I mean, the young guys and the old guys didn't really mix, and I mean, you would meet them on the road and stuff like that. Like even my shows in the first 23, like 9 of them were on the road. I mean, I didn't have the time, but I had a car, which put me ahead of a lot of people. That's
Same
exactly
here.
it. See guys writing jokes. I got a vehicle. So it made a difference. But it ended up that when they first started, it was one show on the Tuesday, and but it had Brent as the MC and then all the headliners. I mean, so it was a pretty good show each week, but they were just... I think at that point there wasn't a room that they got to do things like that. They would go down and be able to do stage time every week consistently. So it started to build up, and as they moved through the weeks, they needed more acts, so they brought more people. In fact, I got my first spot on that show, so it would have been their first anniversary show. I had a joke about tit fucking that Jamie had found out. He liked the joke. And he says, how would you like to come down and just do that joke?
One joke.
One joke. And I'm like, can I have a tag? And Jay Brown's like, don't get greedy. And I'm like, but. So I did. I got to do that joke on the anniversary show, which was a big deal for me because I'd not met Brent I barely knew them. So Brent doesn't even tell the audience that he's like, they introduced me like a normal act. I come and tell one joke, do the tag, and then bugger off. So that was my start of the well. And I mean, it was a fun room to play, but I mean, it definitely built up from there. And I think over the next, year and a half, 2 years, it became a big thing to the point where they had to put that second show on because they had so many people trying to get on there, and they ran long shows anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Brent would do 40 minutes a night as the MC, so I mean, you can see how long the shows would get. So when it was one show, it was probably a two and a half hour show, 2:15. It was a long night. But when they went to two shows, I mean, the dynamic changed because the amateur show became, all new people. I mean, when Jamie was booking, he wouldn't put no thought into it, but he would just let the dice roll where they were. So, I mean, some shows were just crazy. I mean, it was Brent with a bunch of, the Bad News Bears. And then the late show was just the stacked show. And so it was interesting to watch how it moved, but there was that much of a demand on the Tuesday that they had to do two shows just for the surplus of comics, and even just people wanting to come and watch the show because it became the place to drink and have fun. I mean, it was a fun place as is, but the comedy just added another element. And I mean, pretty audience. It was probably the place I played where it had the hottest people I've ever seen.
Really?
Like if you were 7, I'm like, beat it. Unless you work here, nobody wants to see that your 7 look. So the comics would get to mix in with that. You could tell what a comic was. You're like looking around like, oh, look at all these beautiful people, and there's a comic. So it was good times.
And was it the same crowd for the both shows? Would they stay generally, or did you flip
some people did, but those are those people where you always recognize them at a show where you're like, why do I know you? And I'm like, you're a comic, and they're just they love comedy, or they were they draw comics, or they're somehow attached in the industry. But they just there was enough people there that they rolled. Quite a few people would go like twice a month or this and that. So I mean, they definitely had an audience change, but there were some people that would stay and. But generally, it was a different show. At least when I booked it, I mean, it was always, if you watched A to Z, week after week, there were always different shows.
Mm-hmm. And what do you remember your tit fucking joke?
Oh yeah.
What was it?
Said I'd be like, so I have breasts, whatever. And they would laugh because it was so obvious. I still do if you look closely. My breasts are so big that my girlfriend tit fucked me last night. But that was my big thing. That was my my one joke. And people would laugh at my inner turmoil. But yeah, I put a lot of effort into it there, didn't I? I'm like, yeah, tit fucking, yeah.
And what was the tag?
Geez, what was the tag? I don't even know. I can almost see it, but it's gone.
So you get up, you do it. That's basically a one-liner. So you get up, you do it, and then thank you.
Yeah, well, I told one-liners at the beginning because that's all I could write,
right.
Which was weird because that's not really how I do comedy now.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back at videotape and stuff like that, I mean, I could write a joke, and it was generally a one-liner because that was it. I mean, it was I would muster one thing that I think was funny out of that. But that's just, I think at the beginning, that's all you could come up with. So, but
and so at the Well, I mean, a lot of big names came through there. And
yeah.
When did it transition from Brent's room to yours?
Well, I think it lasted 8 years in total. And the first year was pretty soft for them. And then I think it was year 3, 2.5, 3 is when they went to 2 shows. And I took it over at the 5-year mark. So that's when Brent went on to Corn to Gas. And but I mean, at that point, I thought it passed its peak because, I mean, we had so many good acts and a lot of good people. We also had Brent as the MC. I mean, we're talking, we got a heavy hitter. It doesn't matter. Even if the show's just crap, you still got Brent, and he gets funnier as the night goes along, and he was a joy to have. So when he left it, it was a big blow. I mean, I didn't want to take over the room because that room allowed me to do anything. I could go in there and rip a hole in it, good or bad, and they would allow me to do that. That was the only room that did that. Because if I did that anywhere else, it'd be like, we can't book you if you do that, if you turn on an audience or this and that. So, but they knew I loved the room and that, so they wanted me to help run it, and it just it ended up ultimately killing my comedy because I became attached to how the show did as a whole. Like even the first week I MC, because I didn't want to MC. I was adamant about not MCing. I'm not a good MC. I thought I was better by contrast, and it just ended up that they wanted me to MC, and I'm like, ooh. And the first week was the night of a Canucks game, and huge fight with this front row in the early show. I mean, it was viciously mean to the point where I would attack the weakest link at their table just to hurt them. And that was week one, and I'm like, I knew it wasn't going to last, so I made them switch to a regular MC and rotate people over that I thought are funny and just better at it, and that helped. But when you're running and booking a show over a period of time, you no longer become like I'm just gonna rip it up and make the guy behind me struggle and make everyone remember me. I mean, like I can't do that because I want them to come back, and I want the show to be good, right? So,
you're so invested in the other aspects
you are,
of the show.
for sure. And I never thought of that before, and it was a good lesson because I've gone to people's shows, I would do whatever I felt like, and then leave, and I'm like, sorry. But when I became attached to the show, it taught me the lesson of like, you just can't do that if you want people to come back. And we were going to go down to one show. That's what we were talking with the owner, and I'm like, I don't want to go down to one show. I really want that early show to survive, because I said if we're down to one show, we may be down to zero show. With two, we've got a little buffer. And I tried to make that early show better. And what I did, I think, that made that room better is I went in and took they had a show called The Laugh Gallery, which was Dylan Reimer was running it, and Graham Clark, and all these somewhat alternative comics or younger guys were doing that room. And I used to go down and watch that room all the time. And I went in and just said, yeah, you're now my early show. And I plucked all those people that had a hard time getting booked on this show, because it really wasn't booked on merits. It was booked on just, emails, this and that put together. And I made a cognizant effort to make the shows work, where I knew everyone's act. I knew what kind of styles they had, and I tried to build shows that, and put some thought into it, so I could look at I always told people, you never have to ask me to be on there. I'll put you on, because I want to use all my pieces. If I knew you were on last week on the late show, well, you know what, I'll put you on next week on the early show. I just to mix it up and try and put some thought in that. But what made that early show, as things progressed, better was I just came in and I just took all the good young acts, and I got to know Graham really well, and he became my MC on that early show. And I just, as I say, I made it stronger. I made it to the point, at least personally, because I never drank down there. When people tell stories of the well, they're always convoluted, because I'm like, the top 10 drunkest people I've seen in my life were at the well.
Right.
Like, just unbelievably drunk. So I see things a little differently when I look back on it, because it was a great room, but it had many bad shows, but it had some amazing shows. But it's just one of those things that you had to secure that early show, and it became better. I thought ultimately it was the better show of the two. It was not the most prestigious one to be on. Everyone would be on the late show, or there was just that hierarchy where you're like, I got to get on the late show with these people. And I mean, I know people like Phil Handley and Simon King, all these good acts, really good acts now, that couldn't get on that late show. I mean, they just they weren't in, but they worked hard to get on that late show, and that's what it was. It was always, and I think every town should have that one room where you can go and be like, I want to see everybody. I want to see them being competitive with each other in a room and just see the best. I mean, that's good for any town. I think that's why Vancouver put out a lot of good comics. There was a place you could go and see everybody. Like, where am I? Where am I really?
Right.
And even though some people are deluded, and that's fine, but it was just a room where I'm like, I put people on merit, or on skill, or just a thing that was different. And I mean, that's what I want to watch in a show. And I became a Band-Aid. I would do, like, if the show needs a little energy, that's what I would do. I'd come up and give energy, and that's all my act became there, which isn't good as you progress, because I'm just like became a fixer on the show. And a lot of times I wouldn't do sets just because, the show was going sideways, and you'd have to, keep an eye on people drinking and just get him on in the right spot. I mean, when you're producing a show, it was hard and like that. And But as I say, it was a wild ride, good room, great comics to pick from, and but just to have something where you can go down there and strive to be better, as compared to just, I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I'm fighting that guy. I'm like, well, shows like that show whether you are or not.
Right.
And but I think it makes people work harder because they want to. I mean, we did that with Brent when Brent was emceeing. Everybody wanted to do well in front of Brent. Didn't want to bomb in front of Brent. So it would make you try a little bit harder, and that made for good times. And I just don't think there'll ever be a room like that in Vancouver, because a lot of things came together with all these great young acts that started to go through with these very, very talented headliners for years in a room where they're very competitive. And it's a lot more independently 9 different styles of rooms in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a totally different world. I've been gone there 3 years, and it's crazy how much different it is
that
to
right?
now. Like, it's way different.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can go to rooms, and I'm like, I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone in this room. And when I booked Yucks there in their amateur night, I mean, I knew everyone. I made an effort to go see people and try and get them on. But now, as I say, there must be 200, 300 comics there that I don't generally know.
That many, you think? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think people come and go. Even in Victoria here, like, I asked the guy that books the local amateur night, and they probably have 85 people's names here in Victoria. So that's a lot here. I mean, some come and go and never come back and that. But, I mean, to have that many people, if you could email and call and you want to do a set, I mean, that adds up. And I think with Vancouver, there's so many different little rooms all over, and they all have their own little base because people can't get on, so they play these rooms. So I think there is probably 200 probably amateur comics in Vancouver.
Crazy.
Yeah, I wonder how many are funny.
Yeah.
It's so, but it's a different thing now. I mean, I did comedy before the internet. So when you try and look at it like that now, I mean, you can go online and find clips of anybody. Before, you used to have to watch, late night TV, or somebody had a video, and it's just, I mean, it's a whole different world for comedy.
Do you think that YouTube has affected that?
I think so. I mean, videos and just even TV for a while, the last comedy boom, people could see a lot of stuff on TV, and I think there's a saturation. But with the internet now, you can just go on. I mean, you could see more comedy in the next 3 weeks than people would in a lifetime. You could watch everybody, old or new. So it definitely affects things, and even promotions like with Facebook and trying to get people out and do shows or contests. I mean, all this stuff just didn't exist when I started. I mean, there was very few things, very few showcases. Just, it was, up until 2002, just not a lot of stuff. You know? So you just plug along, and there was more road work. That's what it was.
Right.
Now there's no road work, so it's a different ballgame. I feel for these comics that never go on the road. And as I say, my 13th show was a road gig, and I mean, man, it opens your eyes quickly.
It really does.
Yeah, and it was not a good road show.
Yeah.
So.
That's the way I started too. In New Brunswick, I had a car. I would go drive these headliners to gigs. I was slotted to do 15 minutes, which I didn't have. I had maybe 2.
That's a tremendous amount when you didn't have 2.
Jeez,
Yeah.
I was like months in, like 3 months in. It's like, you'll do 15, and you open for these drunk rednecks in small towns, but you really cut your teeth that way, and you're thrown in. It's painful, but you learn a lot. I mean,
you learn that shield that needs to be put up so that you can, continue and do this. I mean, that first road gig I did was in a cowboy bar, and even the headliner, I remember, I won't say who it is, but he made fun of these 3. When I went on, there was nobody on stage. There was like 16 people, 15 people, and the only laugh I legitimately got, I swear, was when I told one of my punchlines when somebody told a joke at the table and it coincided with his laugh. That was the only time it synced up where I'm like that. But I did like 14-ish, 17, some horrible amount, just awful. Then I brought the headliner on, and within, I don't know what happened, man. It was like they opened, here's the door, we let people in, and then it was full. Well, like 15 minutes into a set, it was full, like 250 people. And a crazy big Warner Brothers stage, and he wasn't doing particularly well. And I'm watching this with some wide eyes, and he was making fun of these 3 big morons. They all look the same, and he called them Huey, Dewey, and Louie, right? And then he did the the standard line that you hear. And, well, if you guys think you're so funny, why don't you come up here? And they did. They came up on stage. They took the mic from him, and then they started berating him in a triangle. And this is my first road gig. I'm like, holy mackerel, am I gonna have to fight? My instinct was to grab a rag and pretend I worked at this place. I work here. I'm not with that guy. And then when I went in the bathroom, it was a trough bathroom. There was a Yuck Yucks joke machine there. So, which I'm like, what a great place to put. You know what I'm going to do? I want to listen to some. While I pee here, somebody had actually put money in it, and it wasn't not B.J. Woodbury like it promised. It was Martha Chavez. So, little Martha Chavez while you urinate in this.
What was the Yucks joke machine like a
Yeah, like,
jukebox?
you know, when you get
jokes?
condoms, you get a
Yeah.
yeah, like that, but a joke machine, just to kind of break the ice in the bathroom. So maybe we could take a huge dump. Be like, I'm going to be here in 13 minutes. I'd like to see the best of B.J. Woodbury if possible. Yeah, so they had those all over the place for a while. So I heard somebody found one in a pawn shop in Courtney, and I said, "Fuck! I wanted to buy it because I was gonna make it an independent comedy joke machine and put it beside a Yuck Yucks one, right? So charge a little less." But yeah, it was gone. So my dream is still one day maybe I'll find one in the garage sale, buy a Yuck Yucks joke machine. So,
that's great.
Yeah, so that gig that was my first gig on the road in 13. But it opened your eyes, and I mean, I know many comics, if they went and did that gig, they would die a horrible death because it's very painful when you're not getting laughs, when you're used to getting comfortable laughs in places that you're comfortable. I mean, it is...
What's the worst?
Yeah, some people can handle it. I mean, I can sit in complete silence now. It doesn't matter. You guys can... I find it quite refreshing. It's like swimming. It's just me and my thoughts, and if you guys join in, but it's not for everyone. Some people cannot handle absolute silence or that smell that happens when you're not doing well. I mean, there's the air changes thicker.
Oh, you can taste it.
You can taste it.
Yeah.
It's if somebody opened a window, it was just like ghost out. There's, as I say, that's not for everyone, and if you've never experienced that and it happens, I mean, it's deflating, and it's deflating early in your act. Even if you've told like jokes where you got better jokes coming, I mean, it just deflates a lot of people's acts.
Oh yeah, and you start dropping tags.
Or speeding up, and it's just nothing. There's nothing like it. So, as I say, that people only do 7-minute sets and this and that, and then they start to middling and this and that, but just do it internally in the city, and then they have to go on the road. I mean, it's just a different cup of tea. And when I started, that was the norm. You would go do these horrible gigs, and you'd always have to drive like 6 hours to it. It wasn't like, I'm like, oh, it's one thing to go bomb, by your house. You can go home and have hot knives. It's another to drive 7 hours and stay in a horrible hotel. To really let that marinate in your system, and then drive to another place the next day that's it wasn't even as the good gig. You just did the good gig. Now you're going to do the crummy gig. But I mean, that's what it was when I started, and there just isn't a lot of that anymore. So it's too bad.
And it really, that's the best experience, just to be thrown in there, just to give a perspective of how you can deflate an act. I was like 3 years in, or two years in, and I was doing Yuck Yucks in Ajax, which everyone told me, "Oh, you're doing Ajax? Yeah, you're gonna bomb. It's
exactly.
Your first time there. It's always terrible." So I was.
They already know.
I was freaking out, and I had like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That was it, cover to cover, and I was middling, and I go there, and I showed up there. It was like me against them already. I was like, "Fuck these people!"
Exactly.
Like I was so angry. So I get up on stage, and it was Ron Jossel MC and Jen Grant headlining.
Yeah.
So it was like a stacked show.
Yeah, you feel comfortable in that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I get there, and it's a Thursday night. They do fundraisers there, so it's buzzing. I walk in, and you can kind of tell the energy of the room by how many people are still standing when the show is starting. So the show's starting, and there's a bunch of people standing,
I don't like that.
and fuck, it's like just the air's buzzing. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. And so Ron starts the show, and he's killing. I mean, he's just no crowd work whatsoever. He's doing his A stuff, and he's just like a machine gun.
Going.
He's going, and he's just annihilating. And I'm pacing in the back of the room going, fuck. Like I'm so scared. Right? Already so scared. So I go up on stage. He brings me up, and I've got the fear of God in me. I'm just like so fucking scared. So I go up on stage, and I do my opener. And my act was so structured back then. Like I had 20 minutes, and I knew like at minute 14 where I was, at minute 16 where I was. I
which is always good.
Right. But I couldn't even flip the order. If I flipped it, I was fucked.
Doomed.
Like so it was all straight, like press play and go. And I couldn't deviate from my act whatsoever. So I do my opener, nothing.
Oh no.
My second joke, nothing. And then they start chatting amongst themselves. So I'm like, oh fuck. And there's like a buzz in the room, and just feel the weight on my
Yeah.
shoulder.
Oh, it's awful.
Start sinking.
Yeah, yeah.
My back starts sweating. And then I'm, again, deflating my act. I'm dropping tags,
Yeah.
going to the next bit, going, they're not going to like that. That's an act out. I
Yeah.
can't do that. Okay, drop that. Do the next one, drop that. And I was at a point in my act where I usually was at minute
Yeah.
19
Yeah.
by that point, and I knew I was going to wrap it up. And I had this iPod Nano on the stool with me to time my
no.
sets. And I look down, and it's 11 minutes. And I'm done, basically. And it's complete
Yeah.
silence. So I go, this was my big closer. And my closer was an act out I used to do back then, so I couldn't do that to silence. There was no
Jesus.
way. So I'm
Yeah.
like, 11 minutes, I'm done. And so I'm like, this is my closer. So there's a fundraiser here tonight?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like looking at me with disdain. I'm like, cool. So who's organizing this thing, huh? And this woman like sheepishly raises her hand. She's like, yeah, I am. It's like, cool. Thanks a lot, everybody. That's my time. I get off stage.
Yeah.
And Ron's not coming. He's outside. He's
Yes.
smoking, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the club doors swing open. He
Oh,
runs away.
God.
Anyway, just a side note to show how much you can deflate an act. Like,
Yeah.
that was 20 minutes into 11 minutes, basically.
It just happens, and it's hard to go backwards when you see that. Be like, oh, do the jokes that you haven't done.
Right. It's
That's the obvious
impossible.
solution. No, you erase them off of your memory bank
Forever.
Forever. Yeah, that's
Seemingly.
exactly it.
You're like, I can't. Yeah, that's just it. Let's go back a little bit to the well, because there's some legendary stories there. You just sort of touched on the urban well stories before. A lot of big names came through.
Yeah, over a period of time. Like at the beginning, there wasn't a lot of people that. Because Vancouver, when they had punchlines, used to get a lot of great acts from the States, like Seinfeld on down. I mean, if you looked at they like that. So, I mean, there's always that. But that first 4 or 5 years, there wasn't a lot of people coming to town. I mean, once in a while, you would see a show that made no sense. Like Doug Stanhope came to the Yuck Yucks at the Plaza Nations. I mean, I'm like, blew my mind. But nobody knew who he was just because of social media like
Right.
that. But he got that booking. Or like Alan Watts was one of my favorite comics that I used to see on Comedy Now. And he did a show. Actually, that was a great show in the sense where I saw him. Dave Chappelle was filming that Norm Macdonald, that terrible movie, Man at Work. It was some horrible movie that he was in Vancouver. I didn't even know who he was, to be honest. That's when I first started. He came and did a guest spot. He did 55 minutes. 55 minutes as a guest spot. And then totally changed the dynamic. I've never seen a show dynamic change much where I'm like, heck, I just did 55 minutes off the top.
Right.
Because the MC did a minute. Then Dave Chappelle did 55 minutes. Then Daryl Lennox had to go on. And to be honest, kind of struggled at because the guy did 55 minutes of topics in front of him. You felt the room was just all weird. And then Alan Watts, a bald little white guy, comes on, and he's really funny. And he was bombing, like horrible bombing. And my favorite line he always said, he goes, "I never more in my life wish I was black." And I laughed. But it was just, he came to that room. So, I mean, you would see people that I like, but there's just never big stars that would show up until the well. And I guess they just found out through that.
Like Robin Williams.
Robin Williams came out
times,
quite
right?
a few times. And it's weird because he would always bike there. So he'd come in looking like he just got out of the Tour de France and do comedy, which, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable doing my act in
Right.
green or yellow spandexy bodysuit, but he was, and he was great. And I'll say this about him: I saw more people take pictures with him than anyone in my life. Like he would do it with anyone.
Great, like generous with his time.
Beyond that. And I said, I'm like, how many pictures? He's like, doesn't even know. So, but he was always soft and gracious, and waited in the show, was polite, and was the greatest. And I mean, it was great when he came down because that room just, went from like busy to ridiculously busy. Where I mean, they were surrounded like a fight, even behind him. That's how many people were there watching. And he came down all the time, and he would do, just an easy 45 minutes, and people loved it. And that's back when you would get a text. I mean, before Facebook, where you could send this thing out there. So he came down. We had, Kevin Elam was there. Who else came down there?
Wasn't there? I can't remember her name.
Sarah Silverman was there.
Sarah Silverman, but there was an
David Cross was there.
No way.
Yeah. So, and they did hard material there. Like, I think David Cross is on the early show doing really gnarly stuff. So that generally didn't super work on there. So it was great to watch. Victoria Jackson came down there, and that was a weird show.
Didn't she get kicked out for?
Something was weird. She was filming everybody,
right.
right? She was filming like Graham and some other people, and 'cause it was my birthday that day. I remember that. And Then she went to pay. I think she thought things were going to get comped or something like that. So, and then she paid with all this change, like a massive amount of loot. Like she'd robbed a homeless man, loose change. So it was a weird thing. She didn't announce. God, there's some other good people came down. Actors and stuff like that. They never that. I remember who's the guy from Kangaroo Jack? Mostly Anthony. I can't remember his name now, but he laughs. He sat in the middle of the room and he has the biggest laugh I've ever heard in my life. Jason Priestley used to come down to some of the shows, and he had a ridiculous laugh where I'm like, Jesus, keep her down there. And Zach Galifianakis was one of the guys that came down a lot. I mean, he was filming some show there. It was terrible on Fox, and he was there a lot. Like, so it was really, really interesting to watch. In fact, I did a show at the Yucks where there was the 16 people at the old Plaza Nations, and I bombed badly, and I remember that. And Josh Stubbs came up. He goes, cause I only knew Zach because I saw him on Conan playing the piano, and he just did that the first time. And he goes, I think Zach Galifianakis, can't even get his name right, is in the audience. I'm like, no, what? Why? That makes no sense. And I look out there. I'm like, yeah, it kind of looks like him. As it turns out, it was him. He sat dead center in this room of 16 people and watched an entire amateur night. But then he came down the well the next night. I had a great set on that night, and I remember it was him because he came up and he was very nice. And so we got to see him quite a bit in Vancouver and do a lot of shows, and that was just eye-opening. I mean, that just, he just showed you another 2 levels of comedy, and that, to me, was even before he hit he just got better and better at stand-up.
Yeah.
In those years, I thought he just really, well before The Hangover and that. I mean, but to see him just do shitty shows and good shows and how he'd go about it was totally eye-opening and fun to watch. He was really funny. I mean, I count him as one of my favorites. So it's the only podcast where somebody would knock on the door. That's weird.
Someone's knocking. Let us grab that. We'll be back out. There's a couple of more things I want to ask you,
sure.
so we'll get into it in a second. Let's take a short break here.
He did order pizza. That's what we
All right. This episode of the Julian Dion Comedy Hour podcast, that's episode 11 with Sean Proudlove, episode 11. Yeah, is brought to you by Echo One Photography. Hey, Toronto listeners, I'm talking to you. If you're a comedian, you're a musician, or actor, business person, whoever, it doesn't matter. If you need some headshots done, well, stop looking. Go to Echo One Photography. They'll do that for you. If you own a business, you want to shoot some products for e-commerce or advertising purposes, Echo One will do that too. They do it all, and they do a damn good job too. Email Eugene, that's EUGENE, at echo1photography.com and enter JDCH in the subject line for special offers. Yeah. Do it. Do it. Do it today. All right, we're back. That was Ron Vaudry at the door, but he's out smoking. Anyway, so we're talking about The Well. Okay, so you're somewhat of a comedy nerd. Like, I mean, you watch it, you like it, you dissect it, you analyze it.
I think so, yeah, over the years, for sure. I mean, not at first. I mean, when people go, who did you like before you got in comedy? I mean, I used to like people that did impressions and stuff like that. Now I'm like, I detest them. No, I shouldn't say I detest them. But I mean, that to me, when I first started doing comedy, I was super impressed, and that's what I gravitated towards liking when I watched, because it was just something different. Now I'm like, it's not my cup of tea. I mean, for me personally, I like jokes that trick me. I like to go down a path where because as a comic, we tend to try and guess ahead, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things, and I like people that trick me, and there's many comics that do, and I love that. I mean, it's one of those things where you pull the rug out from underneath my feet, or just people that are good with words, because I'm still not that good with words. So
who are some of your favorites? You say you're still not good with words, but you're a great comic. You're very respected too. Like,
yeah, I think it's because I'm nice to people, or at least fair. I mean, as I say, as a booker, people would hate you, but I always book to say book shows on merit. I mean, if you're funny, I'm going to put you on, and I'm going to put you in an awkward position. My buddy Jeffrey used to just be like, please don't put me on after Tara Lennox, and I'd be like, nope, that's where you're going. Because the uncomfortable is always funny. I mean, I always found that on shows. I mean, like, I want to watch some people struggle, because even good comics don't like to follow certain types of comics. And I mean, I enjoyed watching those types of things of like, what you can do when you know people's acts and put them in those positions. And I mean, I think people like watching me bomb. I mean, over the years, they really did enjoy it more than they should have. So, but they like when it goes sideways. They're not going to help you or throw you a lifeline, but they like to see things when it goes sideways.
So who would be some of your top guys now?
It's tough, because the thing is, like when I was at Just for Laughs, I tried to watch as many shows as I could in between the copious amount of drinking that was done there. But it's always trying to find somebody that you just never seen. And there's a guy from South Africa. I want to say his, God, I can't remember his name. He blew my mind. He was exceptional. And I should know his name, but I don't. But it's one of those things that I'd never seen him. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I think Graham Clark, for a Canadian guy, I mean,
yeah, he's great.
He's ridiculous. The guy just constantly runs, mooning me. He's always funny and always got something interesting to say. But I mean, that's not necessarily the thing that I like. I like people that can tell jokes with. I mean, like somebody like Brent can tell me a joke that I already know what the joke is, but I can somehow still watch it and it makes me laugh. And I mean, that's a gift I can't do when I tell jokes, but he has that gift. But I mean, it's just I like watching a lot of different acts. I mean, some people that's just passionate. I just saw Brian Hatt in town. It was fun. I haven't seen him in like 2 years, and he was so much more aggressive than he was before. He used to be like,
yeah,
and now he's bitch slapping people in the front row. So I mean, it's always fun to watch. I like the evolution. I mean, to me, I say even with jokes. I'm a guy that I describe jokes as like it's like restoring a car. I mean, you're always fixing and fiddling. I mean, Phil Hanley's one of my favorite because he's like that. I mean, as I say, we always text, and he's just always it's never done. He's always trying to polish that one thing. And I mean, that's
right down to the word.
Right down the word.
Yeah.
And I always like that. And I like people that do stuff like that. But I mean, every different style. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many different styles of comedy to watch, and I appreciate them all. And you just know when a guy's a comic. When people are like, he does comedy, I'm like, but when you watch comics, you just know, I'm like, that guy loves it. He's into it. And I mean, even if it's not my favorite cup of tea, I still enjoy watching it because they add a flavor or something like that that I can't do. And as I say, like Sonny Dollywall's, I mean, his energy on stage, they have this stage presence that I just never have. I mean, I ultimately think I'm an all right comic, but I see things through a different light than most people. And I think that's always was like that. But I mean, performance-wise, when I watch a video, I'm like, what a sad sack effort that was. But I think somebody else did those jokes. I think they would do better than me just because it's a performance thing. I'm pretty low-key. I think I frown a lot on stage. I think I just I have this face like I'm an ogre when I'm telling jokes that people are like, 'cause I see them scared in the front row. I'm like, I'm talking about cookies here. Why are you looking so terrified of me? But it is one of those things that it's a two-tier. You got to perform and love to perform, and I don't know if I love to perform. I like it when it's going well, like anyone, but at that point I'm just going through the motions, aren't I? So so it's tough, but I like fixing jokes. I mean, that's what it'll always be. I like fiddling, fixing, much like Twitter. I mean, as bad as people mock Twitter, I'm like, I love it.
You're a great tweeter.
So
your tweets
easy.
are hilarious.
Yeah.
What's your handle so people can follow you?
I think it's Proudlove and Cat. I share the account with my cat.
At Proudlove and Cat.
So she started it and I hoarded in on it. But it's one of those things that I'll say about Twitter. If you're a new comic, I mean, it forces you to rewrite things 3 or 4 times. You can't just put it out there and edit it.
Concise,
it has to be enough where it's past the point of making sense, or you'll write something down in a book and then you go back like, I don't even understand this. It makes no sense to me. But on Twitter, you ultimately, if you put it out there, it has to have been revamped 3 or 4 times, and that makes a huge difference when you're writing stuff. And I had to use a thesaurus for the first time in my life. Never did I use it. Why would I use a thesaurus? Didn't use it in school. Wasn't going to use it for comedy. But with Twitter, the only way you can get that 140 character under is you have to find another word. And that's made a huge difference for me because I use it all the time just to go in and fiddle with these things. But that fiddling with jokes, and I talk about that with Graham, like he loves Twitter as well. It's just one of those things. It's just stupid thoughts. Get them out there. Get them out of your head. Don't know if they have a place in time and like that, but I've got quite a few jokes from Twitter for my act now, even though they're short, but they can become bigger.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
It's just a thought process, and it's a clean, easy way to see your jokes, or just to remember. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Right.
So that's good. It's not necessarily what people favorite. Those idiots don't know shit. They know nothing. If people are like, oh, this one good. No, those are the worst. Right. Those are the ones that just got passed around like a doobie. It's that nugget that no one saw at 4 a.m. that you're like, that's the joke.
Yeah.
But if you didn't write it down there or put a little more thought into it, it just, it would never become anything anyway. So for that, I like Twitter.
Yeah, you're good at it.
Yeah.
So at Proudlove and Cat.
Yeah.
So you've been in Victoria now for 3 years.
Yeah.
What brought you back? The lady or?
Yeah, definitely a lady.
Mm-hmm.
Getting married in January. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
I know, exactly. That's all right. I'm dead on the inside. She doesn't know yet.
Ron Beaudry sits in, by the way. Just walked in the room.
Yeah, his facial expression. He's doing the facial accents to our words here. So,
right.
But yeah, Victoria. I just needed to change. I mean, ultimately, I think if you stay in a city too long, you become frustrated because of just it's the way comedy is, and if you don't move somewhere else and start again, you die on the inside, as I've seen happen to a few comics that were really funny. But by coming here, even though there's less comedy, it's been better because I'm not in the same rooms every week. So whenever I go over to Vancouver, I can just book all the shows. I go over there, do the set. Nice to see everyone. Oh, this room. People try and tell me all the woes. I'm like, couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I was involved in Vancouver on everything. Like people would call me over any dispute and this and that, and they used to call me the Godfather. I'm like, I'm 40 for God's sakes. I am not a Godfather. There's plenty of other oldies here, but I was involved in a lot of stuff. But now that I'm not, it's great. I mean, I've found what's funny again, right? Because I'm not overexposed or just seeing the same morons like that. So, and then when I go to Vancouver, I'm glad to see some of these people that I hated.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's just a change. I mean, my choice was to move elsewhere, but my girl was here, and I grew up here, so it's not bad. And then there's honestly a little burgeoning scene here. It's interesting to watch. There's 25 fairly good young comics. I mean, they're not good enough to move to Vancouver, but they're getting better, and they move as a group, which is weird in comedy when you watch a collective move, that they're not trying to take any pie, because there's no pie here. They just have to get better.
They're so supportive of each other here. It's so crazy.
And I've never seen anything like that. They've grown up together and gotten better. So at some point they're gonna have to turn on each other. So, and I still try and figure out which one's gonna be the funny one. I don't know. I mean, week to week, one will shig or spike. So we watch them move as a group, and I like that. I like their enthusiasm, but they're not the bitterness of continually doing this year after year.
Right.
It wears on people. I mean, you got to really love it. So, or not be good at anything else.
Right. Cool, brother. Well, we'll go in for the close. Anything you would like to plug, good sir?
Not really.
Just at Proudlove and Cat on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter. Follow me, then unfollow me, and then maybe one day follow me again, because that seems to be the trend.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sitting
thanks,
in and talking with me.
Yeah,
man.
it was great.
And that's it. I'll see you next time I'm around.
All right. I'm gonna go have a shower.
Okay, buddy.
All right. Ciao, man.
Well, there we have it, folks. There's our show, episode 11 in the books. Thanks to my guest, Sean Proudlove. That was great. See? I told you I know the future. You better watch out. You better watch yourself. I don't know what that means. Thanks again for listening. Always, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. If you're not listening, there's no point in any of this. So keep listening, keep downloading. Email the show, pod@jdcomedyhour.com. Check out the Facebook group, facebook.com/jdcomedyhour. Follow on Instagram and Twitter @jdcomedyhour. Thanks to my producer, Adam Fox. Thanks to my sound engineer, Miles Lacroix. And thanks to you a million times. I don't know if you get it, but I mean it. Mom, I love you, and what else can I say? Hope I'm not missing anything or anyone. Come to Heckler's this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, Saturday night in Victoria. And, come to the Hard Rock Casino in Coquitlam on Sunday night in the Asylum Sound Room. Yeah. Do it up. The Comedy Mix Wednesday night. That's that. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening, and watch your head.
A piece of my head, but they all get a piece of my mind instead. I roll over and go back to bed. It's such a beautiful waste of time. It's just a waste.
You sound better now.
Yeah, yeah.
Than you did a second ago when I was sitting across from you.
Right. Yeah, these are the real deal. These mics.
Is this like having a hearing aid?
Yeah.
It's, That's what it would sound like.
Yeah. This is the world through
I don't mumble when I have a microphone in front of me.
the ears of a deaf person.
Yeah, exactly. You heard me. We all know you heard me.
All right, check. How's that?
Seems good.
Seems good. Is that too loud or anything like that?
No.
All right.
Weirdly enough, though, when my voice comes out, it's Spanish. It will come out Spanish.
I've got translators. I know people.
Exactly.